It's your Friday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Some beautiful sunshine here, finally here in Minneapolis. Get out there and enjoy it today. Hope you're listening to this somewhere on a nice walk, a nice run, getting out there outside somewhere. Please do it because we've had a lot of rain lately. Good show coming up. Twins beat writer Phil Miller from the Star Tribune joins me here in a little bit to talk about a team on a 10-game winning streak. Twins bring a 10-game winning streak into their game at Target Field, Boston tonight. Like I said, beautiful day, beautiful night. Should be a nice night for a ball game. If anybody wants to get out and check that out, see the Twins put a 10-game winning streak on the line that has redefined their season. They were 7-13. Now they're 17-13. That feels way different, way better. The pace is different. Everything's different about it. But even with that 10-game winning streak, I hate to put a caveat on a 10-game winning streak, but even with that, some looming questions. Twins beat up on some bad teams. Not saying that you have to take anything away from a 10-game winning streak, but 7 of those wins against the White Sox, 3 against the Angels. Certainly not the top teams in the American League. You're going to be seeing a lot better competition starting with this Boston series. So can the Twins keep it up there? What's Byron Buxton's status? Is he going to be healthy soon? Left that Wednesday game, the last game the Twins played against the White Sox, left that game with a knee injury, that knee acting up. Phil and I will talk about that. And the Comcast Bally Sports stuff looming over it all. Bally Sports dropped from the Comcast channels Tuesday night. We'll see where that goes in the future. But right now, Twins fans not having access to those games on Comcast. So we'll see again where that's headed. But a lot of frustrated Twins fans right now who have been through a long and frustrating process while trying to watch their team on TV. And this latest one's probably the biggest one, with a lot of customers here in Minnesota now unable to watch the Twins, at least on Comcast. So Phil and I will talk about all those things here in just a little bit. First, though, what I miss? Let's talk Wolves at the jump. Wolves-Denver series starts tomorrow. Done plenty on this series already this week. We had Harrison Wind on yesterday to give us the Nuggets perspective out in Denver. Jeff Day was on with me a couple days ago to kind of explain what this feels like from a fan perspective. Royce and I talked about it. Lavelle and I talked about it. We've talked a lot of Wolves. I'm sure Chris Hine will be on a show next week when this series shifts back to Minnesota. But right now, we're just kind of waiting for it to start. And I thought an interesting media session on Thursday from Karl-Anthony Towns. Longest tenured Timberwolf at this point by far. The only Timberwolves player who has been through, all of the iterations of, these most recent teams. The team that went to the playoffs with Jimmy Butler in 2017-18. We'll get to that in a minute. These last couple teams that made the playoffs but lost in the first round. This is Cat's 9th season now. 9th season. He's got all the history with the Wolves. He's got all the history with Denver, winning that game 82 to get to the playoffs in that Jimmy Butler year. Losing to the Nuggets in the playoffs last year. Tim Connolly coming over this, a couple of years ago from Denver. Cat's been there through it all. And I thought he had some interesting perspectives on just what it feels like right now, what that first round felt like, what it means to get to the second round. So let's listen to a little bit of Cat and his perspective on getting to the second round now finally in his 9th year in the league.
It's just only right, do it the Minnesota way, take the toughest path to get to a championship. So, we played a tremendous, explosive, highly offensively minded team in Phoenix who's really good and has had our number all year, and we found a way to win. So now this second round, we got to go against guys who are playing at an extremely high level, an extremely disciplined level that they just showed against the Lakers, and we have to go there and find a way to, first 2 games, go over there without the home court advantage this time around. So we have to be willing to play for 48 minutes at a high level. Extremely disciplined basketball. Emotional maturity has to be shown at all given times, and just got to play the game of basketball that we've been playing this whole year. Great defense that translates to our offense, and when we get a chance to play offense, be very efficient in that process.
Now, I think this is interesting because you get the sense that he is grateful to be where he is. You also get the sense that he has seen a lot, and he gets how you now build a team in this league. And that's where I want to kind of bring it back a little bit to the journey he's been on. Drafted in 2015 comes in right away, drafted by Flip Saunders. The tragedy of Flip Saunders dying right before opening night that year, right before Karl-Anthony Towns' rookie season. The pressure on Towns and Andrew Wiggins early on to try to carry that team, to try to bring them to prominence. Tom Thibodeau brought in, supposed to be this kind of, young building team. They don't get it done the first year under Thibodeau. They kind of take a shortcut, make the trade for Jimmy Butler, bring in veterans like Taj Gibson, Jeff Teague, guys like that, try to recreate some of this veteran feel. It was a little bit of a shortcut. I liked the trade at the time. I liked the Jimmy Butler trade at the time, but when you look at it in retrospect, you get the feel of a little bit of a shortcut, that it didn't all come together. Now, Wolves end up trading, of course, Jimmy Butler just a little over a year later after they brought him in. Trade him to Philadelphia. Philadelphia's got him. They look like they're going to go on a playoff run, but they get stopped in the Eastern Conference semifinals that year with Jimmy Butler. Only have Butler for part of a year. He ends up going to Miami, gets traded to Miami by Philadelphia in a deal that they probably regret, right? Philadelphia, bringing this full circle. They've been to the playoffs 7 years in a row now. They've never gotten past the second round. 5 times they've gotten out of the first round. Twice now they've lost in the first round, including this past year. Lost last night to the Knicks in the 6th game of that series. So that series is over. They've shaken things up over the years. They've brought in different people. Joel Embiid, the constant. Some of their struggles can be traced, of course, to Ben Simmons and his injuries and his demise. But a lot of it goes back to that decision on Jimmy Butler 5-6 years ago, trading for him and then deciding, you know what, that's not our long-term fit. I'm sure they regret that. They went with Tobias Harris instead, signed him, kept that core together with Harris, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris had 0 points in 29 minutes last night in an elimination game. Took 2 shots. 0 points, 2 shots for Tobias Harris in that game. I think Jimmy Butler might have given them a little bit more in that game. So that's a decision they made a long time ago that had lasting impact on the franchise, just like it did with the Wolves when they traded for Jimmy Butler, got rid of Jimmy Butler. That became more of a full-on rebuild for the Wolves, right? Tried to kind of muddle through, but ended up firing Tom Thibodeau. They bring in Ryan Saunders. They have, a rebuilding year, end up being able, though, to draft Anthony Edwards because they win the lottery. That sets them on the course for where they are right now with Ant, with Karl-Anthony Towns. Tim Conley comes in, kind of mixes and matches, brings in Rudy Gobert. They were able to draft Jaden McDaniels the same year they drafted Anthony Edwards. They get Mike Conley Jr., Nickeil Alexander-Walker in another trade. They're shrewd. They bring in Naz Reid as an undrafted free agent. He becomes the player he is now. Kyle Anderson, another free agent they signed. So a lot of these little kind of mix and match moves leads to the roster they have right now, leads to this team now that has a certain amount of continuity. And continuity is important, right? Continuity is becoming kind of the story of some of these playoffs, especially the Western Conference playoffs. When you think about the Wolves, beating Phoenix, a team that was really just kind of thrown together this offseason with Bradley Beal added, no bench, no real depth, just 3 guys trying to carry the load. The Lakers kind of the same way. They've had some continuity, obviously, with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but the supporting cast has been a revolving door, and that has not worked out for them as well. The teams that have established a little bit of continuity, Denver for sure, the Wolves starting to get that. That is the series now that everybody is waiting for. That is the series everybody wants to watch. Towns also spoke about that continuity that Denver has and why that makes them so difficult to beat.
For 9 years I've been in the league, so I've got to see a lot of different teams that have been really good, and they kind of give you that old school San Antonio Spurs flavor, Game gets close. It looks like they're playing it still in the first quarter. The execution and discipline they show is second to none. So we got to, like I said, we got to be willing to play for 48 minutes. We've had moments in the Sun series where we had some slippage, where it didn't look like, we were playing all 48 minutes, maybe, 44, 45 minutes. But with a team like this, you can't afford to have those 3 minutes, even 2 minutes of slippage where you're not playing disciplined basketball, and because they're just so good at capitalizing on those moments.
So I love this for Towns. I love this for Wolves fans, just the opportunity in this series. They might not win. The Wolves are going in as the underdog. They don't have the home court. They're playing the defending champs, but I give them a chance in this series. I think everybody who follows the Timberwolves will look at this series and say, if they play at or near their peak and Denver plays a little bit below their peak, this is a series that is extremely gettable. It's a coin flip if that happens. I think the Wolves have this right there, and I think if they win this series, they can certainly go to the NBA Finals. If they go to the NBA Finals, I give them a chance to win it. So we're getting ahead of ourselves there, but I'm just saying this series right here feels like a moment. It feels like a moment for the franchise. It feels like an opportunity. It feels like I don't think people will be mourning if they lose this series because they'll understand that Denver is a worthy quality opponent, but I think they understand this moment, what it took to get here. Karl-Anthony Towns still feels young to me now in his 9th year, what it took him to get here, what this journey has been like, what this moment is like, what these two teams bring to this court. I can't wait for this series to start on Saturday. Let's talk Twins today with Star Tribune beat writer Phil Miller. Phil, got a bunch of stuff to talk about. I mean, it's a team with a 10-game winning streak. It feels like these should be happy times, and they are to a degree. You know, the team started 7-13. Now they're 17-13 going into this homestand starting Friday against the Red Sox, but a little bit of the enthusiasm maybe tempered by the quality of opponent. You know, they beat the White Sox 7 times, the Angels 3 times, not good teams. You don't take wins for granted, and the Twins weren't playing well before that, so you don't, turn your nose up at a 10-game winning streak, but you also got the Byron Buxton knee situation flaring up in Wednesday's game, and this whole Comcast Bally's thing where now a lot of the core customers in Twins territory cannot, as of right now, watch Twins games if they have Comcast. So it's a weird mix of things happening for the Twins right now.
Yeah, they just cannot get out of their own way with good news. It was the most successful road trip in team history. And all we're thinking about today is, here come the injuries again. And how many fewer people were able to watch yesterday's game. You hate to think it's an omen for the season, but they really are playing better. It just seemed like maybe they're just trying to get out of the way so you can pay attention to the Timberwolves.
For a little while at least. What, aside from quality of opponent being diminished and the Twins certainly taking advantage of it, what did you see? I know you weren't on the road trip, but what did you see, in that 10-game stretch that says, okay, this was a problem for 20 games, but then it got a lot better, quality of opponent irregardless of that? Well,
the offense coming to life here and there. It had its moments. And again, quality of opponent, but, they were averaging 6 hits a game, I think, last time we talked. So they've greatly turned that around. Carlos Correa is back to it's amazing how much he solidifies both the offense and the defense. Even when he's off to a slow start like he has been, he's more important than maybe we realized. But I don't think we should discount wins too much.
No.
These are big league teams. I'd have to say, I was struck by, for a 6-win team, how many decent major leaguers the White Sox actually have. They're not a good team by any means, or even a winning team, but they put up some resistance in a lot of games, took leads that Twins had to rally. If you give the White Sox a bullpen, they're a decent big league team, but not so much right now.
No, and the Angels aren't much better, even though their record is a little bit better than White Sox. You could argue they're in that same category. I think that the thing that struck me, and obviously they got Kepler back as well, somewhere in that, as they kind of were rattling off all those wins. I think this thing that struck me is that, yeah, you get those guys back, but then the guys that were just struggling so much to begin the year that made it seem like the lineup was just full of automatic outs. Guys like Santana, guys at the bottom of the lineup who just weren't hitting at all. Miranda wasn't hitting much when he came up. He's been doing much better now. Like it felt like it went from a lineup of how are they going to get a run across the plate to, hey, all of a sudden 4 or 5 guys that weren't going well are going well all at the same time.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, Christian Vasquez has been playing more than we might have expected because they clearly value his defense, and it can be a problem too. He has some pretty bad games at the plate. He's come through a couple of times, but and how about the wild swings in Max Kepler's season? He did it last year too, but I mean, he literally had one hit when he went on the injured list.
Yes.
And he's come back, and all of a sudden he's in the middle of everything. You know, he's had RBIs in each of the last 4 games, I believe, and every one of them in at least the 6th inning or later. These are clutch hits, and he wasn't even putting the ball in play earlier in the season. He you know, when things are going bad, Max just rolls over on everything, and it's just a series of ground balls to second base. But he's hitting line drives. He's hitting for a little bit of power. He doesn't even resemble the guy that went on the injured list a month ago. But you know, it's the nature of baseball. We've seen that already, and we're only 1/6 of the way through the season.
Yeah, that's very true. Injuries still a concern, part of the equation. You know, Joan Duran is back, obviously, so that's a big deal. But just as they kind of get a lot of these guys back, Byron Buxton, we don't know how long that's going to be, but he leaves Wednesday's game with, you know, that knee that's given him problems. That knee acts up again. And Phil, I had Lavelle, former co-beat writer, now columnist, of course, on the show the other day, and he did not give an optimistic projection for Royce Lewis's return. He was talking July. I don't know if that's what you're hearing, but that caught my ear. Like, ooh, they got to wait that long to get Royce Lewis back. Is that just caution, or have you not heard that? Or what do we make of Royce Lewis and Byron Buxton potentially, being out at this point?
Yeah, internally, there's a lot of worry that Royce's injury is the type that would be recurring, is the type that is going to need some extra time to heal. It's funny, the person who seems least realistic about it is Royce Lewis.
Right. So I feel great.
Yes, it's amazing. You should see the Twins trainer roll his eyes when you mention that. Royce says he's feeling good. Yeah. I think they're going to be real careful. I mean, this is the way they handle injuries now. Wait till they're absolutely 100% sure that you're healthy again, and then give it a couple more weeks. But they are, they're getting by without Royce. I would say it hasn't always been pretty. It would help if Kyle Farmer had more than half a dozen hits this year. But I suspect the timeline is going to get really, really difficult to pin down as we go this month. We're only a month in, and they said they would take a month and then reassess, and probably maybe need at least another month. So we're still weeks away from them having to make that call. As for Buxton, to me that looked like Buck knows when it's starting to flare up and didn't want to take any chances. So maybe he escaped serious injury. But, the truth is, even as healthy as he has seemed, the knee isn't healed. It's not it's not in the past. It's going to be part of his game going forward. And I think I would not be surprised if there are 2 or 3 short injured list stints every year for him from now on.
How concerned should they be? The question is injured and has to go on the injured list for a while versus how he performs even when he can play, because he played through a lot of that last year and he just wasn't that effective when he was out there if he was in pain.
Yeah, that's the one thing, and it takes him a while he's very streaky, and it takes him a while to get on a hot streak, and when he does, he's the kind of guy that can carry the team. But we see that less and less, and this in and out. As the Twins are finding out, the cure is often just as bad as the illness. They tried to protect him last year by keeping him out of the outfield. It didn't work. They're limiting him, giving him. He'll always have 2 days off in a row whenever there's an off day. I think because they're looking for ways to add to his rest. But it does have the effect of giving him constant. It's just hard to get going. Baseball is such a rhythm game because you play it every day. And, he's still at the point where he has to check the lineup card every day to see if he's in it. And it's a lot more difficult way to play.
Speaking of seeing it less and less, Twins fans are seeing the Twins on TV less and less, Phil. This whole Comcast Bally situation, Bally Sports North going dark on Comcast Tuesday night. Wednesday fans couldn't watch the game, and that's it's a huge cable subscriber, cable carrier in Minnesota. Diamond Sports had reached agreements in recent weeks with DirecTV, with I think Charter, Cox Cable. All these places look like they were on a bit of a roll, and at least short term kind of shoring up the availability of these channels. But then this drops, and Twins fans are upset, and then rightfully so. I don't blame them. They just want to watch the games, and I think the people who'd stuck with cable and said, hey, this is the safe way to be able to watch games. You idiots who went to sign up for these streaming services that dropped them, after a little while and didn't want to go back. Hey, we stuck with it. We're paying the price. We paid the price in terms of how much cable costs, but we have access to everything we want. Now they don't. This feels like a different level of mess than just, hey, Hulu dropped the Twins, because that's not, that's a smaller base than what you're talking about with a Comcast in terms of subscribers. It feels like this has the potential to anger a lot more long-term Twins fans who are used to getting their games whenever they want them.
I would say that it's that the Twins knew this was a possibility. They knew that Diamond had to negotiate carriage agreements with all their carriers, but I think it was a risk they figured was worth taking, because this is a company on the verge of bankruptcy. It's a company that needs to stay in business by being in business, and I think they decided that it was that somehow Bally's would find a way, that Diamond would find a way, and they did. You're right; they did reach an agreement with their others. This seems like Comcast taking advantage of what they know is obviously very big leverage, but it's a huge problem for the Twins. And I wish I could say I'm optimistic that these things usually get settled within a week or two or a month. But boy, I don't know. I don't know if this one is going to be easily settled. I mean, it's, for one thing, it is a company that might not exist any longer. So there's no real need to make up and be on good terms, because while Diamond is optimistic they're coming out of bankruptcy, this could really scuttle it. It's not just the Twins, obviously. It's affecting 20 other teams, or just about, and it's a calculated risk that the Twins took, although they just didn't feel like they had many other good options. Their only other option to televise the full package was going with MLB, which I think they were reluctant to do at such a late date. This was all settled in February. But now, I wish I could say I see a clear path out of this. I mean, the clear path is for Comcast. I mean, for Diamond to take less money from Comcast, but I'm not sure. it's already such a difficult way to make a living. As they've proven. I don't know that they could stay in business if they do.
I don't imagine the Twins have a whole lot of recourse in this. I mean, I'm sure they're frustrated, as their statement indicated. I think fans are a little frustrated at the Twins for the reason you mentioned. Like, this past offseason, they did have at least an opportunity, even if the opportunities beyond sticking with Bally's weren't necessarily palatable. Going to MLB for less money would have given them a much stronger leg to stand on in terms of getting the games on TV, in terms of getting the games on streaming, things like that. You still have no standalone streaming, which is compounding this problem. It's not like people who have Comcast can say, hey, okay, this stinks, but hey, here's this $20 a month package where I could just, pick up the Bally app for a few months and watch the Twins for the rest of the year, things like that. Not my favorite thing to do, but hey, that's not, it's not like picking up a whole new subscriber. I can still get the Twins. They can't do that. I think people have picked up a free trial to Fubo. I think I've seen a few people do that to play one of the streaming services that does have Bally Sports North, and they're getting access to the games short term. But at some point you'd have to start paying for that. So yeah, I don't know I guess the question is, is there any, if any, recourse for the Twins? And I got to imagine this only, either clarifies, or I don't know if it clarifies or muddies the picture for 25 and beyond, but I just got to imagine they're tired of dealing with this recurring issue of, hey, now this person can't watch the game. Now that person can't watch the game. Now everybody's upset.
That is true. And, you would hope that I know that there's some thought that MLB seeing their customer base being so eroded might step in on an emergency measure. But, this is it's all under contract. This would have to be done with the cooperation of Bally. And I don't know what impetus they would have to agree to allow MLB to step in and put it on streaming. So, on kind of an emergency basis. That is a great hope. You're looking at three businesses that have competing interests and are all being harmed by this. Obviously, Diamond's entire existence is at stake. Comcast, cable systems are finding it difficult to remain in business, and the Twins and MLB is kind of being held hostage by their unwillingness to accept a future where those gigantic regional sports payments are not going to be made. I wish, like I say, I could be optimistic about a solution to this. I would say it probably has to happen pretty quick, or you're going to lose the fan base, and it's not going to be worth it for Comcast to reach a compromise. And I wonder if a compromise is even possible, because a lot of contracts with other carriers in the past have carried clauses that say you can't negotiate. We get your best deal. If you give someone else a good deal, we get it too. So, I can't say I'm optimistic about the Twins retaining their fan base on TV, at least this summer. And boy, do they need MLB to. MLB has hinted all along that they are ready to step in with a league-wide plan, next year, I imagine. And I think there are a lot of teams now that are pinning their hopes on that.
Those league-wide terms, though, have to be money-wise, at least have to get them close enough, right, to where they are now. Otherwise, the Players Association isn't going to love, the Players Union isn't going to love dramatic, payrolls getting slashed even more, right? Like, that was a big story this past offseason, not just the Twins payroll. A lot of teams' payrolls went down, and a lot of it was loss of TV revenue and or at least the uncertainty surrounding that.
Yeah. And I don't know what the solution to that is. Switching everybody to streaming at a lower price is going to be a tough one to swallow. You're right. they cable TV and the companies that profited from it rode a money-making model that really was unsustainable, as it turns out, as technology is advanced, and they're coming to grips with it. I would say that all of sports is going to, but of course the NBA is about to sign a gigantic deal with ESPN. So it might just be baseball. The problem of having so much inventory might actually be a problem for them, because it makes every game less important than there's nothing like football where they only play 17 games.
Yeah, and all those games are available generally over the air, and it's just easier to find them. The TV contracts are all national. It's a little more cut and dry, a little more crystallized in terms of what you do. When you've got 10 times as many games, it's hard to know what to do with all of them. This was easier, Phil, when they were 7-13. Maybe people wouldn't have cared as much if they went away for a little while when they were 7-13. Now that they're winning all these games, people actually want to watch them.
Well, I will say that I follow all the bankruptcy court hearings and have listened in on pretty much every one, and the tone of them has completely changed. And Diamond is now very, very confident that that they're going to be able to stay in business, that they are going to survive this. And they must have known the status of the carriage agreements. So I don't know. That optimism tells me that that they feel equipped to handle this. I don't know if this is a huge turn, but I mean, this is a business that just 3 months ago we thought was 9 months away from folding up and going away completely. But I don't know. It doesn't give you a lot of faith that they've allowed this to happen now.
No, it doesn't, and it's not a. It's not a problem with the Wild and the Wolves. It feels timed really to not really impact those seasons. It's a Lynx issue, obviously, although those games would be available on the $20 a month standalone app, just as Wild and Wolves games are. But none of the rest of the Wolves playoff games are on Bally's. Those all shift to national TV for second round and beyond. And NHL, the Wild are done anyway. But, it's not a Wolves and Wild problem until October, but that would be a problem, Phil, if this dragged on that long and suddenly Comcast customers couldn't also get the Wolves or the Wild. Then you're talking about a lot of people, a lot more people even than just now upset.
Hard to remember that 20 years ago, only 2 or 3 games a week were on TV. I guess it's been 30 years now, but baseball didn't used to be televised 100% the way it is now. And, that's the standard we're used to. And they through no fault of their own, they still haven't figured out a way to make the math work.
Well, we'll see if they can see if and when they figure that out, how this situation with Comcast and Diamond Sports gets resolved. Twins put their 10-game winning streak on the line Friday against Boston. The schedule gets a lot harder, Phil, like we talked about. You got Boston, Seattle, Toronto, New York, Yankees, Guardians after that. There's a lot more challenges ahead on the schedule than there were in the immediate recent past.
Yeah, we'll find out how much good feelings carry over when you're not winning every single day. And we do have to stop and think. It is remarkable that they have won 10 straight games. We knew this was a soft part of the schedule, and I think everyone would have said, "Man, if they can win 7 games here, even 8, that would be a big step forward." Not only have they won all 10, but at times they appeared dominating, it's these are still big league teams. So I am interested in seeing how much carryover there is, how much better they feel, and whether or not Chris Paddock and Pablo Lopez and guys like that straighten themselves out. They're certainly a lot more optimistic now.
I agree. Phil, we'll follow your coverage from the weekend. Appreciate the time. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
Great stuff from Phil, as usual. It should get a Byron Buxton injury update sometime today. Unfortunately, not expecting any kind of Comcast Bally update anytime soon. It might just kind of be, it might come just when it comes. I don't know where that resolution is in sight. As I reported a couple days ago, kind of feels like it's up to Diamond and Bally right now if they're going to accept a move to a higher tier in that Comcast cable package or not. And that will be the determining factor on whether they get back on those channels or not. Right now, a lot of frustrated Twins fans, a lot of excited Twins fans about a 10-game winning streak. It is an interesting time for the Twins, to say the least. And again, tonight, Target Field, Boston should be a really good series. Let us finish with the cooler. Back to the Wolves for just a sec. The ownership dispute is going on in the midst of all of this swirl over, the playoffs and everything like that, everything else going on. Chris Finch was back at practice. There's lots of stuff going on with the Wolves. But in this ownership dispute between Glenn Taylor on one side, Glenn Taylor, who also owns the Star Tribune, and Mark Laurie and Alex Rodriguez on the other, mediation has already failed. They're going to head to arbitration. When arbitration starts, they have to finish it within 6 months. So we should have some clarity on this. I don't know, maybe right around the start of next season at least. I don't know. We'll see. It could drag on that long. But this ownership dispute, not really a black cloud hanging over the playoffs. I think this is pretty compartmentalized, especially with it heading to arbitration right now. But definitely not the distraction you want as a storyline right now. We will see how that all plays out. Things to watch for over the weekend. Lynx in the preseason. Excited to see what they have going for them. PWHL Minnesota has one more chance, one more game against New York to make the playoffs. That game Saturday as well. We'll be watching for that. Good stuff coming up on next week's shows. Royce, he should be with me on Monday. Ben Gessling will join me for a show early next week talking Vikings, recapping the draft, but also looking ahead to rookie mini camp, which is next weekend. Like I said, Chris Hine should be on with me on a show this week. Plenty of good stuff coming up until the weekend, until Monday. I am Michael Rand. We'll see you again in a few days.